My name is Spencer Idanoe, and I'm the virtual production lead here at Sheridan SIRT Center. Welcome to our session today, Virtual Production and the Transformation of Industry. Today we're going to host a guest panel of experts who will discuss the latest developments in virtual production innovation and how these advancements are pivotal to the advancement of workflow and process within the film industry and beyond.
Thanks, Spence, for that great introduction. My name is Jason Hunter. I'm the production lead here at the SIRT Center. And before we get into our panel, we thought it would be important to just give you a basic overview of some of the technologies and understand what parts of the workflow would be more efficient for some of their existing pipelines to ideally bring production value to shows, bring production efficiencies, or ideally both. It's really an amalgamation of all of these technologies that has made something new over the past little while. So things like virtual cameras have been used on both indie and big budget films for a long time, background replacement using green screen, and camera tracking. So by now you've already noticed that I'm standing on our virtual set. It's the same stage that we've been presenting the rest of our show on, but we've changed up our virtual background. And so from a particular vantage point, this camera in particular over here, you get a very nice sense of what I could look like in a virtual world. So this, as a couple people have mentioned earlier, it changes sort of the workflow where instead of creating these worlds in post-production, we're now creating them in pre-production. This type of in-camera visual effects has been around for a long time. But LED walls have really changed that because previous to this, we were using projectors to do this, which don't throw a lot of light onto the subjects themselves. But the big change in this is that now we're rendering them in real time. So as opposed to before, where you're doing that in post-production and each individual frame can take seconds, minutes, or even hours to render to make these beautiful scenes, using real-time engines, we're making happen in real time. So in this particular instance, we're using the Unreal Engine to render the world behind me. And if we just pull up what Unreal Engine looks like, it'll give us a sense of what we're seeing here. So this virtual camera is displaying a particular perspective. And then using another piece of technology, which I'll talk about next, we are marrying that position to the physical camera that we have here on set. So that last piece of technology is camera tracking. So camera tracking, again, has been around for a long time, used in many applications like green screen or CGI compositing. What we are doing is we're tracking the positions of our cameras. So the way our system works, we have an OptiTrack system here at the stage, and it's looking for these little markers that you can see on our Iray Alexa camera here. So once we have the position of the camera, now we're feeding that information into Unreal Engine, and we're associating our camera to our virtual camera. So if Emerson, who's on the main camera here, does a little pan, I'll just pan the camera first so we can see the frustum moving around. Yeah, great. So you can see there's like this one inner window, and we call that our inner frustum. And that's where we're going to push all of our rendering power, because what we see in that square is exactly the perspective of this camera. So that's kind of how everything comes together. And then you can see, we'll do a small demonstration where if Emerson moves the camera, like dollies the camera, and I travel as well. Well, you can see it on the big one first. Our background is being updated in real time based on the camera position through Unreal Engine. And then if you show us it from this perspective and Emerson moves the camera, you get this effect that I'm in this world. So those are the kinds of tools that companies are looking to adopt, and obviously some of the bigger companies have in-house workflows that they're using now. But that's some of the stuff that SIRT has been doing with companies over the past little while, and that's sort of where we see the technology going, is as filmmakers get more creative with how they want to use this technology, new game logic and new things will be programmed into the engine to make those more effective and easier to use.
right, thanks very much, Jason. Excellent sort of introduction to virtual production from a technical side of things. So let's dive right into the questions. Eager to hear from our guest speakers on some of these topics. Maybe like just starting out, Ryan, when you're utilizing when are you utilizing virtual productions?
Virtual production allows you the opportunity to sort of develop your product in pre-production, which previously was sort of an ephemeral thing. Once you got to set, you were showing up at that set and it was built and lit the way that, you react to the circumstances. But virtual production has sort of allowed you don't even have to like what they call context switching. Like you could be holding a camera all the way from your earliest moments of prep through to your last day of your shoot. You could be directing people and blocking through those scenes from your earliest days through to the last day. You could be visiting your set in VR from your very first days of prep through to when you're actually physically out on your location. It's really that efficiency and that sort of refinement of vision that I sort of see as the most valuable tool here, because the two most costly things previously, especially in visual effects, were the building of assets and then the rendering of assets. Marketplaces and scanners becoming more affordable, and photogrammetry libraries going up. You have the ability in engines like Unity or Unreal to build amazing places at a much faster and more efficient and cost-effective manner, and get to your creative goals and solve problems.
When would you say that you start using virtual production tools in a production, like in the production pipeline?
From the earliest days of kind of concept art, and if there's some pages and some scenes to work out and block, like that's the earliest phase that we might try to every production's different now they engage with it, but certain productions would engage from that very earliest moment all the way through to when they're rendering those same scenes and compositing and final renders. They could go through that whole process.
Just to echo what Ryan was saying, what I love about the process is that it basically allows you to keep the process fresh and efficient at the same time. And when you're talking complex visual effects intensive sequences, fresh and efficient don't go hand in hand. Anything that you decide to change at a later stage means that money is, being spent. The other thing, I guess, from a producer standpoint, it also binds you to whatever calls you make during the shoot.
Yeah, it's like that, the notion that everything is real time and sort of rapidly created in terms of the content, like it encourages you to make those decisions a little bit faster. Are these tools, these virtual production tools, like here to stay? Is it truly like transformative for the industry?
Look what Unity just spent on Weta publicly, right? And then you look at you can interpolate the amount of revenue that Epic Games make from Fortnite. So they want to pour that money into innovation and making suspension of disbelief even easier, making things look even more photographically real, and the engines easier to use for filmmakers. What's brilliant about virtual production is it's better for the audience too, the end viewer, because you're going to see organic character generated lenses. So I think there's efficiencies all the way across from start to finish.
Well, I think the great thing for groups like Blackmagic and AMD that is really exciting is that they're able to know that the demand's going to be there in the future so that they can develop amazing products for this workflow, which I think previously was a very niche thing that you sort of had to GarageBand cobble together some very interesting parts to achieve the same thing. So that is exciting. But I think the singular development that's going to happen quickly is as products are developed for this, as things that were more complicated or more expensive, the biggest growth area right now is that these tools are available in many cases, at least from an artist perspective, to everyone at home right now with a fairly reasonable computer. And that's where the greatest demand is. We need people making this art and making the content for these display systems, for these large compute systems. And so that's sort of where a lot of the focus is going to start coming, is getting those people using all these tools, because we have a huge demand for putting great content. There's great walls, but we need to put great content up on it.
Yeah.
Bob, what about from your perspective? Yeah, do you?
Yeah,
yeah.
I was just going to say the pandemic helped in a lot of ways for us to realize what we might want to do going forward. So even when we came out with the 12K camera initially, we weren't really saying, all right, everybody shoot 12K, but we got it into the hands of a lot of guys that weren't able to actually work at the moment. So they started playing around and said, oh, you know what we could really use this for is to shoot backplates for the walls and things like that. And so that kind of accelerated things. We now see the possibilities going forward, so there will be more innovations coming. This could be used in so many different ways, not just blockbuster feature films.
Personally, I'm very excited in seeing, traditionally film technology giants such as, Blackmagic or Arri and Red, and, entering the arena. From a director standpoint, at least my standpoint, I really like to see the camera being sort of like the tip of the pyramid. You want to be able to change something on the camera, be that the frame rate or shutter angle, whatnot, the iris, and those changes ripple, across the system. Because in the end, our goal, is to make this technology invisible to the filmmakers.
I mean, maybe Max, just to continue off of kind of sort of your experience in virtual production, is the use of virtual production like cost efficient? How can we improve or lower costs so that this technology is more accessible to wider communities?
I do think that the price of entry right now might be a little steep for most medium-sized or independent productions, but I think with most things technological, except maybe for iPhones, prices are going to come down in the next future. Whatever LED volume are online current right now, will be replaced by the 3.0 version of it, and the previous current LED volume might be accessed by independent production of independent filmmakers.
It really depends on answering questions early in production, whether you're using an LED wall or not, in terms of how deep your efficiencies go, because one show might choose to shoot an LED wall with just some plates just to make sure that they get reflections right, and it's just an HDRI, and that's what their workflow is. Someone else might need the parallax, might need the Unreal Engine, but then they might be going into a totally different visual effects workflow for any sort of cleanup and other work that they're doing later, and so maybe that adds some cost. The bottom line is people can definitely see that this makes things faster and oftentimes, depending on their scenario, better. And to the sort of efficiency and cost, I think until we have some more transformation of process, that'll still be it depends for everyone.
It depends on what your budget is, but I would say the barrier to entry to virtual production is actually quite low now. And that I think that any film or any TV show could benefit from using a form of virtual production, and it could be relatively inexpensive.
What specific workflow aspects are we not really using in virtual production that we could be using, and from that blue sky innovation perspective?
Yeah, I think higher resolution stuff is a goal now, to try and raise the bar there. Some of our products are 4K, some of them are 8K, now we have some 12K, obviously. So I think we'll see some innovation there because, especially for the backplate stuff, you want to, even if you're only shooting 4K or 8K, say, in the production itself, you want higher than that resolution in the LED screens so you get better, real looking images. So I think we'll see some more innovations of those, coming down the road. That's just going to be the natural thing where, I remember when HD was a big deal. Now, forget it. We're way beyond.
Sure. at what point do you think there's going to be like virtual production standards where processes are in place that everyone's sort of like following? Or
we'll never get that to a place that like there's an absolutist standard, because it's art. And so, a lens might be mapped and then retuned again and then mapped again, and then somebody might have something that they want to try. So we might get closer and closer to making it faster to adapt, I think, is what comes alongside standards. Is just, not sort of saying you have to use this camera and this lens in order to work with the stage, but actually get to a place where you can say, bring your tools, bring your craft, change it up and mix it up on us. Back to the point of we're all not, where is the expertise in that, the fact that we're consistently changing this stuff all the time to sort of, get that aha moment from a request.
any final thoughts before you take off?
This isn't a problem that can be solved by AI and by machine learning. It really is a problem that can be solved by people making art. So excited to kick that off, and thanks everybody.